All right, guys, it's time for another edition of Lawless and Order. And I'm sitting with my good friend and attorney, David Lawless. David, how the heck are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I get to talk about wrestling and the law, which combines two of my passions. How are you, Greg?
I'm okay. I'm getting ready for Father's Day. We've got a good little episode in the can here, and this is the final touch of the episode. Are you excited for Father's Day, Mr. Lawless?
Well, not having children, I'm excited for celebrating with my father, and not having children to celebrate with at this time in my life.
Yeah.
So, it's weird. Father's Day is a little bit different this year with COVID-19 and no baseball, and I don't know. It's just, American traditions that you think about just not happening thus far. So
it is very strange, much like the topic we're going to discuss today. One of the strangest storylines in the history of professional wrestling that needs to be dissected. We need to figure out what laws were broken.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're talking about Rey Mysterio, which is Eddie Guerrero, SummerSlam 2005, the ladder match. But not just any ladder match. There wasn't a contract to potentially get a title shot one day. There wasn't a championship belt hanging above the ladder. It was custody papers for Rey Mysterio's son, Dominick. Absurd. Just absurd.
First of all, what a great topic for Father's Day.
Yes.
Right? I think this will go down. I haven't done the research on this yet, Greg. I apologize, but I think this will go down as the first and only time in history that custody has ever been determined by a ladder match.
I believe you are correct when you say that. It went down at SummerSlam 2005, as I stated, and the build-up to this was very interesting. The feud between Rey and Eddie began around WrestleMania 21, and they had a classic match at that year's event, and they had some rematches following that. Eventually, at some point, Eddie turned heel, and in the process of that, he wanted Rey Mysterio to bow down to his commands and kind of listen to him and fall in line. Rey refused to do so, and Eddie proclaimed that if he did not, he was going to reveal a bombshell of a secret. And boy, did he ever. It turns out that Eddie is the biological father of Rey's son, Dominick. Apparently, back in at that time period, years ago, Rey and his wife, Angie, had trouble having a baby. And so Eddie helped facilitate the situation. And because he was busy with travel on the road and busy with his own family, he left Dominick to live with Rey and Angie. Now, all of a sudden, to ruin Rey's life, now that he's fallen in love with his child, he proclaims that he now wants custody, and he brought a lawyer into the picture. And through all these shenanigans, Rey doesn't want to lose his son or what he's raised as his son. So now they have no other choice. It has to be settled in the ring in a ladder match at SummerSlam 2005. David, what laws could have been broken in this whole thing? I mean, there was a situation where Eddie was taking Dominick out on outings, and technically he's not the parent. Obviously, there's social workers and lawyers involved where they're allowing this contract to be held above the ring in a wrestling match. What are we looking at here?
Well, let's talk about the first issue that involves Dominick and how we're amazed that the Child Youth Services were not called on Eddie Guerrero and or Rey Mysterio at any point throughout Dominick's life. I mean, not only are we talking about this custody battle that they're in, but how many times has Dominick been subjected to unnecessary emotional distress throughout his lifetime?
Very true.
I don't care if it's by his biological father or the person that raised him in Rey Mysterio. They got to quit putting him in harm's way. So let's leave aside the fact that this kid probably would have been taken and put into the system so he could get away from this craziness and protect his own mental health.
Yes.
Long ago. But one of the big questions that I think was unanswered in the storyline is, did Eddie conceive the child with Rey's wife? Or was it a child that Eddie had and sired with some random woman that he just decided to leave in front of Rey's house, similar to, the beginning of This Is Us when the kids are left in front of the fire station?
If I remember correctly, I think Eddie was involved with another woman, and he left his child to be with Rey and Angie. I think that might be.
Oh boy.
I could be wrong.
Oh boy.
I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but I think that was the situation.
Okay, so first and foremost, one of the biggest issues, if that is the situation, is we got to focus on Eddie Guerrero. So not only has Eddie Guerrero committed a felony in the sense that he has basically wrongfully taken this child from the child's mother,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But now he has basically signed over rights which he doesn't have to Rey Mysterio and his wife. So that woman, whoever she is, and if she's listening out there, I hope that she takes Eddie Guerrero to court for all the money that his estate is worth.
Yes.
All right, so that's one issue. Secondarily, what's important for everyone to understand is that paternity versus parental rights are two different things. So paternity is the actual biological identity of the person whom is the mother and father of a child. But as we've learned, parenting and parental rights are different and mean much, much more. So not only does it mean who the actual father of the child is, but it means who raised the child, who has, dedicated resources to the child. So I would say that, it's not a situation where Eddie Guerrero can just snap his fingers and say, hey, guess what? This is my child and I'm taking him. I mean, that's kidnapping, right? It's false imprisonment of Dominick. It's the intentional infliction of emotional distress for the fact that he's willing to reveal this huge secret to Dominick and basically ruin this kid's life.
Yes.
So that's a major issue there. I don't know that there was ever a paternity test that was issued in this matter.
I don't think so. I don't think there was.
But, I'm not sure how well it would hold up in court, Eddie Guerrero's testimony, because a witness's credibility is always at issue. And so if you've basically made your whole career on lying, cheating, and stealing, you completely lose all your credibility when you're testifying in a court of law.
Very true. That's I didn't even think about that. I mean, that was his whole mantra, and
yeah,
not going to look good in the court.
I mean, look, whenever you're cross-examining a witness, okay, you can bring up any crime of deceit that the individual has been engaged in for the last 10 years. So it doesn't matter what the case is. If it's a civil trial, a family trial, a criminal trial, you can always talk about the witness's credibility to testify truthfully. So any crime that has to deal with truthfulness, fraud, if you wind up like passing, fake money, if you, cheat on your taxes. So basically it would be Eddie Guerrero as a human being, just lying all the time.
Yes, absolutely. So here's a question for you. And I think this is the biggest question of all. If both parties agree, are you able to put a human being on the line in some sort of bad sport? I mean, like we've also had issues in the past, which maybe we'll delve into one day, where, for example, if so-and-so loses, then the person that wins gets to own a person for 30 days. You know what I mean? So Technically, can you put a human, or in this case, a child, on the line in a professional wrestling match? Do you think that's something that, as long as two parties agree, it could happen?
Well, unfortunately, there's no legal precedent for me to go off of. Perhaps, if I'm lucky at some point in my real legal career, I will find myself in a situation where I can make this argument to a judge.
Yeah.
And then, we can somehow have a ladder match to see who's going to get it. But I would say that, no, I don't believe that they could legally allow this to operate as the ultimate determination of who gets custody. I mean, at the end of the day, the determination that a court always makes regarding custody and parental rights and visitation and whatnot is going to be what's in the best interest of the child. So they'll look at a myriad of factors. What type of environment would the child be best in? What type of parenting has the individual that has parented the child engaged in? What's going to be, best for the overall safety of the child and security of the child. So I would say that, no one would get custody because a court would step in and a social worker would step in and say, So we think that the logical way to solve this is to let one person beat the other person's ass and maim them in front of the child, nonetheless, too. Right?
He was sitting
right.
front row to see it all.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know what? It's bad enough when you see parents fight or adults fight, right? But this time you want to see on pay-per-view, right? You gotta pay to see the emotional damage that's going to be wreaked upon Dominick. You don't get it for free on cable television.
Yes. Now.
No,
go ahead.
So I would think that, you look on balance, right? I think a court would say, no, you can't do this to the kid. And then on top of that, even if Eddie Guerrero would have won the ladder match to get custody, okay, he's the head of a gang, right? Rey Mysterio is this upstanding citizen who stands up for everyone, who's raised this kid that's not his own, who confided in his best friend, right? And here you have Eddie Guerrero, who lies and cheats and steals, is holding this over his head to create some type of psychological carnage for Rey Mysterio. And then he's the leader of a gang that lies and cheats and steals to get ahead.
Yep.
I mean, there's no way a court would be able to say this is acceptable.
Now, let's say that Eddie Guerrero is found guilty on some sort of charges for the things that he's done in this. Like, what do you think is the maximum penalty in which Mr. Guerrero would face in this situation?
I mean, I think first of all, there would be some type of restraining order against him.
Obviously.
You can't get within so many feet of Dominick, right? And actually, we've had situations in professional wrestling where people have had restraining orders issued against other wrestlers, and
yes.
the no touching orders. If you touch me before, you forfeit the title.
Sure.
So, I mean, I would think there would be a restraining order. I would imagine that, for false imprisonment and kidnapping, you'd probably be looking at anywhere from maybe 5 to 25 years, depending on the state where he was tried. And possibly, you would be looking at some type of house arrest also.
Not a good situation for one Eddie Guerrero.
No, in addition to all the other crimes that Eddie committed. I mean, does anyone forget the fact that he was running a car inside of a building, and I'm pretty sure that the lowriders that he was driving were not street legal.
Oh, absolutely not. There's no way.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could have arrested Eddie Guerrero for traffic violations before he even got to the ring.
Unbelievable. We talked about it before we started recording. When this storyline was happening, I was like 17 or 18. I couldn't believe how absurd it was then. And, 15 years removed, it's still just as absurd.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what's funny is, like, when you talk to non-wrestling fans, okay, just put in a vacuum the two issues that we've discussed so far on Lawless and Order, right? A marriage where it's a secret marriage that gets disrupted, and then you've got a custody battle, right? This is a soap opera. This is General Hospital, but instead of it ending with an actual court proceeding that's somewhat tied to reality, right? It's ending in a professional wrestling match.
So ridiculous. But, it's the perfect story for Father's Day. So with that being said, David, I appreciate your time as always. And if someone wanted to reach out to you and find you, how could they do so?
Well, if you out there are fighting for your parental rights and you'd like to somehow get me to petition a court to have you engage in a ladder match for your parental rights, you can reach me at maxpetrunyapc.com. That's maxpetrunyapc.com. And if you have any other legal issues that you want to discuss, you can reach me through there as well. Not just paternity issues. I actually don't really do much family law, if any, because it's kind of a heartbreaking area of work.
Sure.
But, one thing I want to talk about, Greg, real quick as an aside, if I ever get in a position of authority in my practice of law, like if I ever become a judge or anything, I'm going to completely change the judicial system. How cool would it be if when you went to trial, your lawyers got entrances?
I mean, look, I think about that often in life, how just in every walk of life, people need their own entrance music. I mean, why not? A lot of people in this world are missing out.
I agree. And in fact, I always said, and I will do this should I ever hire an employee at Max Petrunya PC, because right now I'm like a single mom. I wash and dry here at the firm.
Sure.
But should I ever hire an employee, The requirements for submission to the job are going to be a writing sample, a resume, and a one-song CD of your entrance music to be played the second you step off the elevator or come through the door, because that is going to be a very telling sign of what entrance music you choose to come into your job interview with.
Most people on job interviews try to ask the question of which superpower would you have or something of that nature, but I feel like the question of what is your entrance music is far, far more important.
Oh, yeah, and then to follow it up, you end it with what you're finishing with.
Hey,
you know,
no better way to finish this edition of Lawless in Order. David, I thank you as always, and I can't wait to do this again.
Always a pleasure, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Thank you once again, Mr. Iron, for having me on.
Thank you.